the edition. We know we usually have it on the final Thursday of the month, but we just had to postpone it by a week due to some technical challenges we had last week. So certainly looking forward to this week's conversation. How are you feeling? I'm seeing some of the regulars here and waiting. Marcia Clark, how are you doing? Heather, happy to see you again. I'm really happy to see Kim always here. Ruth, Ruth Rolla always here as well, regular for Conversation Corner. So happy to see you guys joining us once again. Drop some messages in the chat. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? I'll just put a slight message in the chat. How are you feeling today? You can say good. How was your day? My day was a little, I had a good day. It was a peaceful day. I'm not too busy, not too stressful, but how was your day? So feel free to drop a message in the chat. You can turn your mic on and just say, how was your day? How are you feeling today? What did you enjoy about today? My name is Tahir Babulia, and as you know, Um, we have the conversation corner where we do a bit of training on a variety of topics. And we have special guests each month and we feature them who are special to us, star agents in their own right. And they share on a topic that y'all choose. Y'all choose what topics y'all want. We started to do that recently, and that has been super successful so far. Alwyn Walker says my day has not ended yet. Very busy. So Alwyn, I hope you have something to eat. I hope you have something to drink, and I hope that your day finishes off excellently. Heather says the day is hot but enjoyable. Today was super duper hot. So I hope you drink your water. I see Candy has her water. I know my director, Dr. Leacock, she's joining from the road. I know we had training at the National Assistance Board today with all the caregivers for the NAB program, home helpers. So I know she would have had a long day. We have had a board meeting. But thank you, Doc, for joining us. I'm not seeing any other members of the team just as yet, but as they join, no, we will be engaging with them. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, the National Transformation Initiative responsible for transformation in Barbados, upskilling and developing Barbadian skills and how they can become better, how they can become star agents as we call them at the National Transformation Initiative. So what we do is we have a two-pronged approach, and what I say, we have online courses all for free in a variety of areas, and that is can be found on nti.org.bb, and you can go on and see the many opportunities we have specially for you. And all of these courses, as I said, are for free. 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 And then also too, we have in-person training where we train in a variety of areas as well. We have a program called the Art of Service, which essentially wants to improve service and transform service in Barbados. And it deals with communication, personal branding, problem solving, things like these, which are so critical for becoming more productive in the workforce. Marcia Clark says, I am feeling great, although extremely hot. I am looking forward to another exciting session. Marcia, I am so glad that you are here with us again. Every month, you're one of the first people to join. When I come into the Zoom, you're always there, ready and waiting to join us. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to invite to the screen our very special guest tonight. She has an amazing story. She's an HR specialist and she'll be sharing on managing conflict. Well, she will share a bit of her personal journey as well, her personal transformation that she has been through, and she wants to engage you, especially. She told me that she wants this session to be the most engaging session yet. So, y'all have to be good guests. Y'all are always good guests. So engage Candy, ask her any questions. She's a friend of the NTI. She is super helpful to the NTI, always willing, always ready. So Candy, welcome. How are you feeling today? Are you excited?
I'm excited. Hello, everyone. I see Wynell just joined. She's in the waiting room. Great. Yes, I'm honored to be here. Happy to be here to speak with everybody and get to discuss conflict because it's very timely. You know, I think we all deal with conflict at some point in our lives, whether personally, professionally. So it's really a skill that we need to master so that we can live peacefully. And I think in a post-COVID world, especially, we really, really need to manage our mental health. And managing and mitigating conflict is really a big part of that, in my humble opinion. So I'm hoping that at the end of tonight, we will learn from each other. I want it to be an engaging session where I can learn from everyone as well. And we come away from here with some new skills, a new understanding of conflict, and ways of managing it, and ultimately even not having conflict in the first place. Good to go?
Good to go. That's brilliant,
All
Candy.
right.
Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. All right, well, everyone, I think I'll start by defining conflict. Now, we can define it in different ways, but the main way I look at defining conflict, and you may have your own definitions, and I'm happy to hear them, is basically when you have opposing desires. And so, whatever it may be, whatever that desire is, it could be a personal thing, a professional thing, but when there are two opposing opinions, two opposing goals or goals that are being sought, that's where conflict can start. Now, I really group them into two types of conflict. You're going to have internal conflict and external conflict. And I think oftentimes the internal conflict that we may be experiencing informs the external conflict. So if you're already challenged and struggling with certain things internally, it's going to make you likely a bit, maybe a little more rough around the edges, a little more sensitive, and thereby more prone to having external conflicts then. And so examples of internal conflict would be to stay or not to stay, to leave a job or to stay in a job, to stay in a marriage or leave a marriage, to uh, exercise or eat that piece of cheesecake. That's my typical conflict. And so, how you deal with that internal conflict, that internal struggle, is really going to inform how you move forward. So, if you know that, in my case, I like to use myself as an example. If I want to get healthy, if I want to do well on an exam, if I'm studying, I know what I need to do. I need to study, not go hang with friends. But that conflict may come up when I decide, well, I really, really want to go to this outing, whatever it might be, but I know I need to study. So I have the power to make that decision. And so it boils down to me then making the best choice, ideally. But if I don't make the right choice and I go out and I socialize and then I fail the test or don't do as well as I wanted to do, I have to accept that responsibility. And as long as I can accept that in peace, then that's okay. Now, external conflict, that is typically either professional, where it may be a work situation, maybe with your boss, with your colleagues. It could be an external conflict with a stranger. That could be road rage. It could be in the grocery line. I think we all saw the videos during COVID when people were fighting in stores over toilet paper. And you would think, what would drive someone to actually be fighting over toilet paper? But in that moment, their opposing desires basically came to a head. So I want the bounty and you want it. And so they struggled. But if in that moment, each person in that struggle had taken a moment to step back and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I'll buy it. We'll split the box. We'll, something, some kind of compromise. And I'll get to different ways of dealing with conflict in a bit. But if they had done that, they wouldn't have been on the news now, all embarrassed, fighting over this package of toilet paper. Now, besides the professional type of external conflict with whether your boss is, whether it's a stranger, you have them with your families, with your friends as well. And for example, you may be struggling in a personal situation, in a home situation. You handle that typically different than you would handle a situation in an office. You might take certain liberties in how you speak to the person that you're having a conflict with in a personal situation than you would to perhaps your boss or a colleague. I would hope. But there are situations, and I come across this sometimes in my role as HR, whereby people apply methods of dealing with conflict in a professional setting the way that they might do it in a personal setting. And it's all about learning, it's all about understanding when and where. And so that's something that you can certainly teach, but you have to make a choice in the moment to actually adhere to the teaching, right? Now, can anyone hear me okay? Because I can't hear anything. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that
we can hear you loud
everyone
and
can hear
clear. We
me.
can hear you loud
Okay,
and clear.
good, good. All right. So I want to ask a question. Is conflict always bad? Anyone can shout out.
No.
Okay, very good. And I agree with you. I'm not sure who that was, but I agree with you. Conflict isn't always bad because oftentimes, at least in my personal life, and again, I draw from personal experience, in my personal life, sometimes conflicts have actually led to greater understanding of myself, of the person, of the subject matter, whatever it is that the conflict resolves around. And I think that it can be healthy if it's managed the right way. And so I don't think that we need to go avoiding conflict because sometimes conflict isn't really conflict in terms of it being something aggressive or damaging. It can actually be something that actually uplifts you and actually enlightens you. And so I would say, don't stray away from conflict, because a lot of people sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, when there's a conflict, we tend to maybe avoid it because we don't want to enter into discussions. Maybe we're intimidated. There are different reasons why you may not want to actually face that conflict. And you don't have to face it aggressively, but you really, really should deal with it and not avoid it. And if you have that mindset that conflict isn't bad, then you won't be so weary of actually embracing it and moving forward with it in a healthy way. And I found that when you do that, you actually come out of it feeling better. You may have a conflict with someone, and then in the end, you realize that your opinions, your desires are not really that disparate. You're actually similar, but the way that you're communicating is what makes it seem like you're at opposing ends. And so, communication is another key thing that I really stress when it comes to managing conflict. Because I've been in situations where I may be having a dispute with someone, a disagreement, and then in the end, we realize, oh, we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it differently. But sometimes when I'm busy talking and not listening so much, or the other person is busy talking and not listening to me, the communication breaks down. And so it's really important that once you identify that there's some kind of a disparate idea, some type of a conflict or a dissonance, you need to then listen actively. That's one of the key things, because then you know what the situation actually is. If you're not hearing the person, then how can you really respond in any meaningful way? And so I always stress that, number one, you actually face the issue. So don't run away from it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't avoid it. Speak to the issue in a respectful way. You have to pick the time and the place. So if you have an issue with a coworker, don't bring it up in a team meeting or in the middle of lunch break in a cafeteria or something. Step aside, speak to them quietly, respectfully, and work it out. Because oftentimes that crowd mentality can really impact how the two parties actually interact. And if they're in a situation where they're away by themselves, they might actually be a bit more understanding, tolerant, patient, all of those things than they would be with an audience. So identifying, yes, there is a difference of opinion, there's a conflict, then speaking to it, not avoiding it. And once you're speaking to it, make sure that you're listening as well, so that you can actually hear and understand what the real issue is, what the other person's point of view is. And you may sometimes discover it's not so different from your own. Now, once you're communicating with each other and you're getting those feelings out, it's important, I think, too, to ensure that we don't take it personal. Even though sometimes it may be a personal issue, but I find that what has helped me professionally and personally is if I separate my ego and myself from the actual issue. Because if I'm all in my feelings, as you would say, then I'm going to react differently. I'm maybe defensive. I may come out a little aggressive. I might feel like, as they say, you mash my corn, so I'm going to mash yours back. But if we maintain that as much as possible, an ego-free conversation, you'll find that you can actually hear the person and even empathize. And so that's the next point I would make, is that once you've identified the conflict, you've chosen to face it head on respectfully, you're communicating, you're listening to the other person, actively listening to them, and hopefully they're actively listening to you. And then you engage your empathy. Because if you're empathetic to that person, sympathetic and empathetic, I would say, but empathetic meaning understanding where they're coming from, not just feeling sorry for them or feeling what they're feeling, really feeling it from as if you were in their shoes. I find that really helps, because we're all carrying some kind of baggage, I would say. I think we can all admit that. And there's all kinds of stressors that happen before you interact with your colleagues at work, or even with the person in the grocery store, or whomever you may be having this conflict with. And so whatever you're going through will really inform how you respond to that interaction. And so if you're very self-aware and you already know where you're at internally, that'll also help you to manage that potential conflict a lot better. I've seen situations where people, it may seem like a small issue, but yet it becomes such a major issue. And I mean, there's a major impasse as a result, because no one wants to compromise. No one wants to really hear. No one's really hearing the other person. And so that's where it'll break down. But we're here to try and learn how to move past that and not let ego, frustrations, personal issues, all those things bear into that moment. We have to kind of really stay in the moment and actually deal with the issue at hand. Sometimes what we do, and what I've done, you'll bring in old issues, old things that maybe happen with this person or even not with them, but you're looking at this particular conflict through the eyes of the past. And it's very important that we deal with situations in the moment. So if someone does something to you that offends you, or if you're the one who's done the offense to the person and they make it known to you, you deal with it. Don't say, well, last time you did that to me too, tit for tat. No, that's not a healthy way to deal with it. Rather, what you need to do is say, I hear you, even if you don't agree, but I hear you and I understand, or I'm trying to understand. And if you don't understand, you can also say that I don't understand. I don't know why it's an issue for you. And you can say that in a way that's not going to be devaluing their position or their feelings or minimizing it, but rather it's actually engendering conversation and sharing. And through that, you will actually, I think that's the only way you'd really work it out. So to recap, you need to not avoid the situation. If there's a situation that you feel is causing conflict within you, between you and someone else, whether personal, professional, you face it head on in a respectful way. You actively listen. You use empathy, engage your feelings of empathy for that person and even sympathy in times. And ideally, put yourself in their shoes. Because if you do that, then sometimes you'll see, you know what, I can understand why they reacted that way. I can understand why they feel that way. And even if you don't feel that way, you can still identify what they're feeling. And that brings then, you're almost united on that front. And that's the beginning of resolution. And ultimately, in any conflict situation, resolution is what you're seeking. Some people, I know, we encounter all kinds of personalities, and there may be some people who just seem to thrive on conflict, who are always in some kind of conflict. And I always say that you may have heard this saying before, as within, so without, or as above, so below. And so I always say that when someone is a strifeful person, they're in a lot of conflicts and they're not able to resolve them and you're just butting heads with them. Number one, look within you to see if perhaps you are a factor, if it's stemming from you. And if you can truly say it's not, then you look at the other person and have sympathy for them because they may be struggling with something that has caused them to behave the way that they're behaving. And if you have that kind of a mindset, I find then it's almost, you feel sorry for the person. You feel like, you know what, they may be going through something. They may not be, but in the off chance that they are, I don't want to add to that burden. And so for me, the only true way to resolve conflict is to really have a heart in that situation. And I always talk about walking in love and moving in love. And it might sound airy fairy and it may sound difficult to do, and it can be at times, but it is truly what will cause these situations to be improved. Now,
Candy?
in terms of
Hey,
once you
hey,
have
Candy.
actually, yes,
Just one
go ahead,
question
Tahir.
coming in. The person says they're
I'm
totally
not
loving
seeing
the
my chat,
session.
so I don't know if it's, go ahead.
It's okay. The person is saying totally loving the session so far.
Oh,
I'm glad you spoke about empathy. How do you build empathy though? That's the question.
mm-hmm. That's a good question. I'm not sure who asked it, but thank you for the question. Um, for me, empathy comes from number one, if you've been through a lot, trust me, that makes you empathetic because now you understand the struggle. That's one way. But even if you haven't walked in that person's shoes, but you can just give them that respect, give them that space so that they can actually share what they're going through. And so you may not know it from personal experience, but if someone tells you, I broke my leg and my leg hurts so bad, you may never have broken your leg, but you have felt some kind of pain. So you can identify in some way with pain. And so whether it's leg pain, back pain, shoulder pain, on that ground, that common ground. And so that's what I look for. I look for commonality. And so when you're in a conflict situation, you're disparate, you're feeling different from them. Their opinion is opposing yours. Everything about them is basically anti you. But if you try to find some kind of common ground, that's where empathy will come from. Because now you have, it could be the most minute thing, but it's a beginning and you can build on that. And you'd be surprised with some active effort how many things you have in common with the same people who you may be butting heads with. Hope that helps.
Thank you. No other questions as yet, Candice. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. All right. Alrighty. So in terms of, let's talk about workplace stress for a little bit, or workplace conflict, which really stems typically from stress. And there are different types and different scenarios that bring about stress in the workplace. It can be power struggles. It can be, the issue of cliques where people, kind of band together. It could be a dissatisfaction with your job itself, with the way that you're compensated. You may feel the salary is not sufficient. You may feel some of your duties are not fair. there's so many different ways. You may feel that someone is getting over where you're not. There could be favoritism or perceived favoritism. And a lot of times I found that the conflicts in actually in professional and personal, so whether workplace or home or family, oftentimes it's the perceived difference. It's a perception thing, and it's not always the case. And so that's why it's so important that we not just go on perception or what we think, because really and truly, what we think is informed by what we've been through. And I don't want to use the word baggage, but it may be baggage. It may be some, traumas, childhood traumas, different types of traumas you go through that you may not have actually gone to taken the time to heal. And so these things you can be triggered very easily then. And if you do that I call it work, like personal work, self-development. If you work on yourself, I find that the situations where you're in conflict become fewer and fewer. So if you're a person who is often in conflict of any kind of conflict, I always say start within. Have a quiet moment and say to yourself, how come I'm always fighting with everybody? Why is it I can't get along? Susie and Bobby over there seem to be fine. Why is it that I'm always in drama? You have to look within yourself then, because if the common denominator is you, then it means that you need to look at yourself. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean you're weak, nothing of the sort. What it means is that there's some work you need to do. And we all need to do work. It's just that we may be at different stages of that work, of that development. So the same way in school, you wouldn't expect a kindergartner to be able to do, secondary level calculus. Well, in life, the same thing. We all have to go through those progressive stages of development and self understanding, self awareness, and then that will then inform how we interact with each other. And so I think I often say COVID was a bit of a blessing in that I think it gave people a lot of time to sit home. It allowed NTI to really grow, and all the wonderful courses that are offered, because you had the time to sit there and actually do them without anything else. You couldn't leave the house. Maybe, there really wasn't much to do. So you had to kind of work on yourself, or at least you had the opportunity to work on yourself. In normal life, you're running to work, you're running to classes, you're dealing with your family, kids, all these things. And oftentimes yourself is left last. And so you basically crash at night, you go to sleep, you don't even give a thought. But if we set aside that time to work on ourselves and seek that self-awareness, that's really going to help us in understanding others. Because through self-awareness, you realize we're not that different. And I think that's the root of a lot of conflict, is that we see each other as different, separate beings. But the way I view mankind is that we're really all one. We're maybe in different shells, this physical shell, but we're all one. And if we look at each other like that, then we wouldn't do something to someone else that we wouldn't want done to us. And it really goes beyond any religion, any denomination. It's just a human consciousness thing, that you find in religion, yes, but no one religion owns that idea, is what I mean. And so once you find yourself, you get within yourself, you get to know the good, the bad, and the ugly about yourself, then you're able to appreciate it in other people and not judge. Because a common problem as well with conflict is that we're sometimes judging or being judged. And that when you judge, that's because you don't really understand them and you don't see them as you. You don't see yourselves in them. Because when you do see yourselves in them, the judgment goes away. And peace is a lot easier to attain in that mode, right? Now, I made a few notes here. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything out. Any questions you guys can shoot still. Yeah. All right. Now, there's statistics all over the place about conflict and ways of dealing with it. The most recent one I read, it says that 85% of people in general experience workplace conflict. So for me, being in HR, that's something I would deal with oftentimes, and something that I have a heart for, because I feel you shouldn't go to work and feel bad. You should look forward to going to work. And even if the work is tedious or it's difficult, then the people who are there with you, that will give you comfort, ideally, that, okay, at least we're in this together, and there's kind of like peace in that unity. But sometimes that doesn't happen for many reasons. And so if you're finding that you're one of that 85% that are experiencing workplace conflict, then, and about 29%, I think, in another survey, about 25 or 29% say that it's regular, like either daily or very often. Let's see, I'm seeing a question here. How can you get your workers to have empathy? Let me enlarge this. Okay, I have a question. I'll read it out here. How can you get your workers to have empathy among themselves? I have a colleague who crosses path with everyone, both customers and staff. Well, I would say that's probably a very wounded person who hasn't dealt with some kind of trauma, because typically that's why you're vibrating at a level or in an energy that is, like this. You're going to attract more of that. And so if this person is always in conflict, they're likely internally conflicted. And it's very sad when you're internally conflicted because you're not at peace. And if you're not at peace, you're not going to recognize peace in others. You're not even going to be able to think about it because you're so busy just surviving, just, being able to function at a base level. And so it's really important that if I had that person to deal with who's always in strife, I would definitely sit them aside and talk to them. And oftentimes that problem may have nothing to do with work. It's something else they may be dealing with at home that they don't know how to deal with. And as a result, they're already thin, they're stretched thin. So now when they come to work, the slightest thing is going to just get on their nerves or cause them to be distracted or to not perform to standard, all these things. So as an employer, I really believe very much that we have to be empathetic to our workers and understand that a worker is not just a cog in a wheel. They're not just here to fulfill a job and collect a paycheck at the end of the week or the end of the month. They are a human being. And it's really, really important that we approach each person, each employee holistically and understand they have different factors, good days, bad days, happy home life, dysfunctional home life, just like managers might, or, the business owners might as well. And so empathy really is overarching for everyone. This is not just relegated to the line staff or to the higher echelons. We've seen conflict in so many levels in society. We've seen, for example, not speaking to any particular parties, but in terms of politics, we see people within certain political parties overseas and even locally in conflict with each other. And really that's because even though they're ideally on the same page, yet they're not in certain ways. And so that's the conflict. And it goes to show you that you may be united on certain points, but not united on others. But you have to be able to put it all together. And so whether in a professional situation or a home situation, a personal situation, it's really important that you communicate, that you hear, that you listen to the person. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't know what the real issue is, you're not going to ever be able to solve it. And sometimes ego, pride, these types of things impair people from really being able to share what's really the problem. And so we kind of speak to safe topics. Oh, I'm just stressed, or that, and we throw out these words that oftentimes are so overused that they've really lost the meaning. And we it's almost like you put on a certain mask, a certain face, when really and truly there's so much more going on, so much deeper. But for whatever reason, whether fear, anxiety, insecurities, these things, you may be well justified to feel fear, anxiety, and insecurity in certain situations based on how you may have been treated previously. However, you still have to go forward. You still have to work on it. We can't ever just kind of give up, because then you'll never have resolution. And I mean, countries go to war over these types of things where there may be other factors for sure involved in some of those disputes, but conflict at the heart, conflict is still disparate desires, a conflict or a dissonance in the desires of the parties who are in conflict. And the only way to resolve that is to identify what they really are. And you may find they're not as many as you thought, and then systematically work through them. And there's different methods. I mean, compromise is a big one. And compromise meaning not that you give in, but meaning that you come to a mutually agreeable or mutually amenable outcome or resolution. Some people say like agree to disagree. That's one way. But then I figure at least that's a peaceful way, but the problem is kind of still there. You haven't really dealt with it. You just said, well, let's just take a pause. And that's okay too. You can revisit it later. You can always come back to discuss. But if you handle it poorly in the moment, you've basically blown that chance, right? Another question.
Yeah, Candy, we have another question in the chat as well.
Okay.
Different question.
Is a person making millions of dollars better than me if I don't make that much? And what is the path to making millions from zero? Well, if I knew that, I'd be talking to you from my Learjet right now. No, I would say definitely not. Money does not equate to value in terms of human terms. It may afford you a certain lifestyle, but it may not even afford you any greater portion of peace or happiness than the person who has less. You know that saying, more money, no, how do you say it? More money, more problems, And so very much so, the more money that you have, it may mean you have to manage it now. If you have it invested in 10 different places, you got to manage that. If you have no money, I often look at, people may know Ninja Man, some of the guys, so-called vagrants, in town. They seem so happy and at peace. They have no home. They're out in the streets. I'm not saying that's the way to go, but there's a certain freedom that I recognize in that kind of a life. It's not an easy life, I don't think, but comparing that now to the person with all the millions, but yet they're stressed out. They've got people calling them for loans and for handouts. People may be trying to cheat them out of their money. They've got to now protect that money and secure it. If you don't have it, you don't have to worry about it. And so there's benefits to both sides. It's all about perception. You can be miserable in a mansion and you can be miserable in a chattel house, but you can also be at peace and overjoyed in your chattel house, and you can be overjoyed, yes, in a mansion. So it's all about how you view it. It's all about gratitude is a big part of it. And I find a lot of workplace conflict could be avoided if people were really grateful. I mean, we say we're happy to have our job, we're grateful for a job, because, when that flow bill comes, when the mortgage is due, the car payment, whatever bills you may have, you're glad that you can pay them. But then when you're at work in the moment and you're frustrated, you might think, and so sometimes we act impulsively in that moment without remembering to be grateful that, what, this may not be the perfect job, might not be the perfect boss. My teammates might be, goofballs, whatever. However, I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it. And when you focus on the positive, I've always experienced personally and learned, when you focus on the positive, you're going to manifest more positivity. If you focus on the negative, you're going to manifest more negativity. And I mean, I've proven it. If I wake up in the morning, for example, and I just feel grumpy, because it happens, I might smile a lot, but I have my grumpy moments. And I wake up and I'm in a bad mood. But if I actively say, you know what, it's going to be a good day, I find at the end of the day, I actually was a good day. But if I allow myself to kind of fester in that sourness and, whatever it is, then driving down the road, traffic's going to be bad. I'm going to hit every red light. And then maybe, one time I remember being in a bad mood, I actually got a flat tire. And I really felt like, wow, this is the universe telling me to chill out because I was already in a bad mood. And then to get a flat tire, it was so, I remember that day very, very well. And that was one of those points where I said, you know what, I have to live this way because I'm seeing it really come into fruition. What I practice is really coming true. So I would really implore everyone to do that. Walk in gratitude, number one. And that's one way of avoiding conflict, because if you're grateful for your life, if you're grateful for your job, if you're grateful for your family, maybe your husband isn't the greatest husband, but if you're grateful for him, maybe your kids aren't the greatest kids. They're stressing you out. They're maybe getting into trouble, but they could always be worse. So if you're grateful for them, you will find those little things to celebrate. And you'll be so busy celebrating those little things that you won't even notice some of the things that might previously have caused you to get into conflict. And so your perception, your attitude is a big precursor to what types of interactions you're going to have. Now, conflict, I always say it will happen in some form or fashion. So we don't want to just say, oh, be happy and stay in your happy place and you won't have conflict. You could be happy as ever, but still have conflict. And I believe sometimes that may be the universe testing you to say, are you really grateful? Are you really happy? And so what you need to do is just continue on that path of gratitude. When that person gets on your nerves and they don't seem to see your point, you may be right. You may be fully, fully justified in whatever you're feeling, but they're not seeing it. And so you then have to now use every skill within you, which hopefully you'll get some from this discussion today, to then be able to maybe turn it around. I'm sure we've all heard that saying, you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. And so I try to be the honey and not the vinegar. Sometimes it's harder than others, but I find that when you do that and the other person is coming with their aggression or their negativity, it's hard to be negative when someone's being positive to you. It's very difficult because you end up feeling kind of foolish. Like you're ramped up and you're up here, and then the person that is not reacting, not participating. And that's a good way of diffusing it. But ultimately, if there is a legitimate conflict, you do need to face it. You do need to listen to the other person mutually. You need to discuss it, and then you need to find a way. Now, compromise is one of the ways. Go ahead. Was that a question?
I think that was a mistake.
Oh, okay. No worries. I lost my train of thought there. Let me think. Oh yeah, speaking about communication, which is so key. So in terms of the communication, it's all about really hearing the other person. And even once you've communicated and you both understand clearly what the issue is, you may still disagree. Because communication doesn't mean that you agree magically. It means now you have that understanding where you can now move forward and find solutions. And now you can compromise, meaning that you find a mutually agreeable solution. You can give in, yield, which isn't a bad thing. That doesn't mean that you're being weak or submissive or getting walked all over. Not necessarily. It can mean that. But in a healthy situation, what it means is you've decided, you know what, this isn't that big of a deal to me. It's okay. I can just let this go. And that's a healthy decision once you can truly let it go. Not where you say, oh, I'll just let it go, but then you harbor it somewhere secretly. And then next time when something comes up, you bring it up again. And it basically, you end up having this cumulative effect of old, stale issues coming out at one time over something maybe little. And that's when you'll see people reacting so severely or so intensely to something that really is kind of minor, because likely they've had all these other things that they haven't dealt with that they may have yielded to rather than facing. And it results in now kind of like an over exaggerated response, right? Let's see. Okay, I'm just looking to see some
Candy,
questions.
Marian is saying that she's enjoying the session so far. So
Oh, thank you,
we're really
Marion. You
getting some
said
support. Yeah, Marian,
wonderful.
yes.
That's what we're here for. And it's two ways. I'm not going to talk the whole time. I'm going to stop shortly because I really want to hear everybody and get tips from you
Yes.
guys too.
Feel free to
It's
drop your
really
questions
important.
in the chat. Feel free to, if you want to turn your mic on and ask Candy anything at any point in time, feel free. Remember, we
Hmm.
go straight up to 7 o'clock. This is the
Absolutely.
NTI Conversation Corner on Zoom, where we do a bit of training, and we have Candy Foster talking on managing conflict. Candy, go right ahead.
Hmm. Okay. So other ways that conflict can come about when boundaries are crossed. And this is something that is, that happens oftentimes, and again, personal or professional situations, but basically where you feel someone, they've crossed a line with you, and a lot of time they may not know that they've crossed that line. They may not be understanding that. So then when you react a certain way and the conflict ensues, they're wondering, well, why is she acting like this, or why is he acting like that? So it's important in terms of mitigating conflict and also managing it once it actually occurs. And it's really important that you understand basically what the conflict is, and that you're able to really speak to it and identify your boundaries respectfully again, so the other person knows. So if I'm sensitive, let's just say I'm sensitive about um, weight. I've been eating a little bit too much cheesecake. It's Christmas. That 20 pounds you put on at Christmas is there. You haven't dealt with it yet. And someone says, wait, you put on weight, or they say something to you about weight. And I might be triggered and then react so, rudely that they will be, well, I only made a comment. And they might not be thinking it was an insult, but I may take it that way. So it's important that you set boundaries, and not in an aggressive way, but instead by saying, you know what, I'm really sensitive about my weight. I know, like, these pants don't fit, and again, it comes from a place of humility where I would need to be able to say, I'm willing to admit my I wouldn't call it a shortcoming, but my sensitivity, so that the other person understands it's not really them, it's my sensitivity. And I would appreciate if they didn't, speak to my weight or whatever that thing may be. It might be something else for someone else, right? But we all have our sensitive spots. And so if we know we're sensitive about something, it's important then that we educate those around us and how to deal with this, setting those boundaries, whether in the workplace. Some people like to talk their whole life out, tell all their business. Others are very private. Either position is valid. And so if someone is willing to share and someone is not, you don't want to then take it personal. Just understand that people are different. We're very much alike in many ways, but there's certain things that make us unique. And if we can embrace our differences and really appreciate them, we find then that we're not so different. And it might sound like a contradiction, but in our differences, we'll find our similarities, if that makes sense. And so that's really, I think, a key way of, in some ways, avoiding the conflict altogether. But then once you have a conflict, in terms of dealing with it. And I'll tell you, there's situations where the conflict can't seem to be resolved. And that's where we can say, you agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. It might not be able to be resolved right now. And if it's not going to, for example, impact, if it's a business, if it's not going to make the business shut down or harm the business or cause harm, period, there's nothing wrong with deferring the discussion or deferring it. It's not that you're putting it under the rug. You will consciously say, listen, I'm not in a good space right now. I don't think I can really, in a healthy way, deal with this situation. So can we stick a pin in it and come back to this later on? And hopefully the other person will understand understand that and respect that and allow you that grace. And also, you would extend that grace if the situation was reversed. Because ultimately, it's like saying running before you can walk. If you're not able to really address it healthily, it's better that you don't deal with it. You acknowledge it exists, or if you don't even want to acknowledge it, you don't have to acknowledge it, but you acknowledge it for yourself, and you just plan and work towards being able to acknowledge it openly with the person with whom you have the conflict. So it's never about just ignoring it permanently. It's about dealing with it when you're able in a healthy way. What is the next step when a worker is always in confrontation with coworkers and customers and believes he or she is always right? Yeah, that's a common situation too, in work and personal. So a lot of times people will feel they're always right. And you know that old saying about the customer is always right? Well, the customer is not always right. Let's get that out there. However, you can't ill treat a customer. The customer is always the customer. And so even if the customer, you may have people come in, they're rude, they're obnoxious, but if you return in kind, is that really helping? What you really would need to do, whether with a customer or co-worker, is actually, I always say, do the opposite. So if they're ramped up, you talk extra calm, smile. A smile can soothe a million ills, really. If you could be telling someone something but smiling, and they will take it different than if you're not smiling and you say it. And so I find, especially in customer service, where you have disgruntled customers, maybe they want a refund, they're complaining, they're dissatisfied for whatever reason. And these are customers, whether external or internal customers. In that situation, that's where empathy really comes in. But aside from that, that's where you have to really, I would say, take the high road. And no matter how they're behaving, once you realize, you know what, that's not the right way to behave, you don't even have to tell them that. Because sometimes telling someone that they're being rude, they know they're being rude. And that can actually trigger them even more. What you need to do in that situation, what I would do, is simply speak to the person in a calm voice, smile, and say, I understand your frustration. You can go as far as to say, I would feel the same way too. Not every situation that might not be appropriate, but definitely I would let them know, I hear you and I'm going to do what I can to help you. And if someone still goes on like that and they're getting more aggressive, you might need to call the police, or security. But I find that when you approach it that way, typically those people, they kind of feel silly, like, oh, she's being so polite and I'm being not polite. And so then they kind of come down a bit. And in the end, you can really hear what their issue is. Now, if this person thinks they're always right and it's a co-worker, so it's the actual person providing the service, whatever that may be, and they think they're always right, they really, I would say, need some customer service training, number one, because they will have to understand that even if the customer is wrong and you are right, because they may be right on some situations, they may think they're always right, but I'm sure there's certain times when they may be right. It's a learning tool, it's a teaching opportunity. So if you're the person asking the question, if you're, then what you can do with them is have a discreet conversation with them. I always say discreetly, not in front of everyone, because that can bring out a different personality in the person if they feel they're on stage, there's a lot of eyes on them. But I would have a quiet conversation with them where I explain to them what you feel and what is wrong. If it's against company policy, that's the easy ones. You simply pull out company policy and say, this is what you did and it's incorrect. And you let them know these are potential consequences for this breach, and educate them on that so they know, oh, I am wrong. Okay. Now, if it's something that is not so clear cut and it's more of a matter of opinion, you can still speak to them and say, wow, I understand why you feel this way. However, have you considered this way? Oftentimes, offering an alternative is a good way for them to see, oh, so I didn't have to behave this way. I didn't have to, react this way or feel this way. I could have looked at it this way. So sometimes it's just a matter of someone with a more rational mind in the moment, showing them other options, other alternatives. Because typically, when someone is behaving like this, they feel backed in a corner and they feel defensive. And so they figure, well, I'm right. And they're so bent on saying they're right and believing they're right that they don't even always know if they're right. And then when they may realize they're not right, that they're in fact wrong, then pride comes in and they may not want to admit that. So they may still continue on that same aggressive way or that same inappropriate way because they're not able to actually be humbled and accept, oh, you know what, I was wrong. Eeks, sorry about that. My bad. It takes a big person to be able to do that. And we're not all there yet. And even sometimes we're there, but not in every situation. So I would say for you, be empathetic towards that person. It might be hard because they might be a real pain to deal with. And if they're confronting people and if they're not heeding your gentle prodding, then discipline is an issue. You would have to then bring in discipline. But I always say first try and find out where the person is at, why they're behaving this way, because sometimes they may really be right, and then it might be a learning moment for you to realize, oh, you know what, that's a good idea of doing it that way. And then you might be able to then maybe change policy or modify it or something, or amend it in some way. And so I always say it's all about what is the greater good, working together. And if we have that goal in mind, then our personal egos and our personal desires kind of fall back from the common goal. So it is really important that in a workplace situation, we inspire that commonality. We're here for a purpose. Let's be the best restaurant, the best hotel, the best manufacturing plant, whatever it is. If we're all on board with a common goal, we will find that, you know what, that reward or that potential reward is greater than any conflict that we could encounter along the way. Because we're going to say, you know what, Susie is really annoying, but I want to. Susie might not be so annoying. I hope that helps. That was Michelle.
Yes, Candy, we're having lots of questions
Okay, this
in
is
the
indeed
chat.
information a moment ago. Yeah, seeing them there. This one, this is. Can everyone see the chat? Is everyone? Should I read it out? It says change a topic on change your perspective, change your life, and it basically said the same thing you were saying. Oh, all right. I'm so happy to be here. Oh, thank you, Anne. I am too. I really am, because as much as talk it to remember it myself, because we're all human. I have bad days too, believe me. But if I can remember the things that I say, and by saying it repeatedly, it gets embedded in me even more. And then with communication like this, I also learn new things. And I also learn that struggles people are having, which helps, it informs me then too, so that I can, kind of, okay, let's see. You can begin to, okay, let's see. What about having energy every day and feeling refreshed, not tired, and getting distracted, doodling on paper? What solutions help this? Well, I am the consummate doodler, and I often get distracted. So that's a thing I'm still working on, really, for me. In terms of energy, I will tell you, feed your body, feed your mind. You need nutrition for your body, you need nutrition for your mind. And so if you're eating cheesies and shafet, nothing against shafet, but you need to eat some vegetables, you know. If you're eating healthy, your body is actually it's like your car. You don't put, the cooking oil in your car. You're going to put, motor oil. You're going to feed your car the way it needs to be fed to operate at optimum. So you need to do the same thing for your body. So feeding your body, but then also feeding your mind. If you watch, I always say this, oh, it's hot. If you watch a lot of violent shows, a lot of shows, you read a lot of books, things that are aggressive, angry, your life might be beautiful, but believe me, it will affect your energy. At least this is my belief. And so I say, basically, if you want to be energetic, if you want to be positive, then you need to feed your body with food that gives you energy, and feed your mind with energizing thoughts, books, shows, conversations, people, these types of things. And then you'll find that you're able to actually get that energy up. You may have ebbs and flows, but ultimately you'll be on an upward incline overall. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Also, if I'm in a team and there's a team leader, but they are power tripping, picking on the most minor things in relation to me, do I ignore this or bring it up, or maybe switch teams? I would say to this, I would say bring it up with the person one-on-one, initially at least, right? Because I always like to give people a chance to say their piece. Because again, it's all about perception. They might be perceiving something in you, and that's why they're reacting that way. It doesn't mean it's legitimate, but that might be how they're feeling. And if you approach them respectfully and you say, listen, Bob, I feel a bit put upon. I feel a bit targeted. Is there something I'm doing wrong? Is there, can we discuss this in your own words? And this takes courage, yes, but just understand that we're all the same, regardless of the title, the salary, the race, creed, religion, whatever. We are human trying to get through this life together. And so you go to that person respectfully in a discreet way and let them know how you're feeling. And then you gauge from their response. Hopefully, they're going to say the truth. They're going to say, yes, I am pushing on you because perhaps they see great potential in you. and they feel that you maybe are slacking off, maybe you could do better because they could see your potential, and they're a bit harder on you because of that, it's actually a compliment. But if you don't know that, you're going to think, why, they don't like me, they're targeting me. You might want to even make an official grievance about it. Meanwhile, they might be trying to actually push you, inspire you, motivate you, and then you will take it the wrong way. They might be just mean, but you won't know if you don't have that discussion. So that's why I always say, have that discussion. Be bold in it. Be respectful, but be bold. Know your worth. Understand that you are just as worthy as the other person. And if something is making you uncomfortable, you have the right to address it in a respectful way. If the person, now that team leader, doesn't respond in a respectful way, shuts you down, gets more disrespectful, most likely you have some kind of recourse in your policy whereby you can go to someone else. I would never sit and say have a confrontation in a meeting where you bring it out amongst everyone. Instead, I would just go discreetly to the next level. Whatever avenues they provided for conflict resolution or for grievances, I would follow that through and just think out what you're feeling and be able to bring it across in a emotionally controlled way. You don't want to go in there in tears, panting and raving. You want to say respectfully, I feel put upon, I feel I'm being targeted, abused, whatever your situation is, and communicate that to whoever it is you need to communicate based on your policy. And then I believe, if the policy is working right and that person is doing their job, they will then work with you and that person, whether you might do some mediation, some conflict resolution, simply a conversation. Sometimes, like I said, they might be trying to motivate you. So now when they say, listen, I think you're the top person in here, you could perform great, and I feel that you're not doing it, now be motivated to say, oh wow, I'm actually like a favored person. And you will look at it totally different. You won't feel then put upon, but if they are legitimately being mean to you and not trying to motivate you, definitely speak to them first, but then escalate it to the next level until you get that resolution that you need. It may end up meaning that you need to leave that team, but that's a decision. I would say it's a last resort after you've exhausted all other options, right? I like to try and work it out. And when you leave, don't think of it either as a failure. It's a conscious decision, as long as you have actually gone through the steps and then you leave. But if you leave in a huff, you haven't actually solved anything, you haven't learned anything. So go through the steps and then respectfully remove yourself from the situation for your own peace of mind. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Candy, this is brilliant
That
stuff.
helps.
Michelle is certainly saying the universe is speaking through you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna ask if you have any other questions at this
Oh,
point in time. Marianne is saying I totally agree. Everyone is giving so much commendations in the chat. Any other questions at this point in time? Because I know we don't like to run too much past 7 o'clock because I know everyone is so busy, and has some other stuff to do and what's not. But this session has certainly been engaging and insightful. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions for the crowd?
any questions from me? Is what you
Yeah,
said?
any questions from the crowd? Oh, Michelle has a question. Candy, your internet is sticking, so you perhaps may have to off your camera. Yeah, it's been sticking a little bit. I'm not sure if it's just on my end.
Oh, it's breaking up a little. Say that
If you
again.
don't mind, if you can just turn your camera off because your Wi-Fi is sticking a lot.
It was just a little bit. Okay.
Okay, that hopefully that's better. Michelle, yes, there's definitely going to be another session every
There,
month.
let's see.
At the end of the final Thursday in every month, we have Conversation Corner. But this last month we didn't have it because we had some scheduling challenges. So that's why it's the first Thursday of the month. But every last Thursday of the month. So the next Conversation Corner will be on the 26th of September. You can join the same link. We'll send the email. We'll put it on our social media as well. Um, Perhaps Candy, what do
That's
you think may
great.
be a good follow-up topic? We also have Michelle, we also have midweek mindset every Wednesday on 95.3. We have different training sessions, different outreaches and stuff like that. But Candy, what do you think? And crowd participants, feel free to let us know what are some of the topics you may be interested in as well. What other topics? We had managing conflict, we had managing anxiety, managing stress. for time management as well. What would be some other good topics that you may be interested in?
Hmm. So many.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to let us know what other topics you may be interested in, because we're always looking to improve and become better, at what we do. And I'll show you in just a
Hmm.
short minute after you answer the courses we have. Oh, this is a good topic. Managing school and work, managing your finances. Okay, brilliant. This is
Oh yeah, good.
excellent.
Good.
This is
Yeah, I'm
excellent
seeing it
feedback,
now.
guys.
It was frozen for a
Can you-
minute.
Yes, I'm realizing the Wi-Fi is giving a bit of trouble on your end. So yes. So managing your finances, managing school and work. This is really, really good. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do now is just show you our platform.
Hmm.
As I said, the nti.org.bb is here to help you every step of the way. And really and truly, it is so simple. We have courses in many areas. So these sessions are meant to be feeder sessions for you into what the courses offer. So we have courses in a variety of areas. As I said, we formed a partnership, of course, here at the International University, and they provide courses in many, many, many areas as well. So what you would do is come on nta.r.bb, click register now. You'll see what opportunities we have. When you click register now, you come in here
Yes, amazing.
and you would put in your name, your last name, your email address, your age, your gender, which parish you live in, and then you go straight in. See all of what we have to offer. And then you'll be able to land on this page right here. Once you register or you sign in, and you obviously see what you have to offer. We have two course sets of courses, the NTI localized courses, which are 8 courses: citizenship, financial management. Someone asked about managing finances. So we have a course in that. You can do that today. We
Hmm.
want for
That's a
you to
good one.
start that today, Michelle. Core skills, introduction to coding with Java, occupational safety and health, sign language, online safety essentials, and entrepreneurship. What I'm going to show you is how do we
Amazing.
enroll into a course. You click enroll now, and you go straight through. All of these courses are online, done at your own time, on your own pace, at your own ledger. When you come in, you click here, and then you click start course. I've started this course already, so you would click start course, which will be right here, and then when you start, naturally, you would click continue, and you would be able to go through and complete the course in start order. We also have the Coursera courses. These
Wonderful.
Coursera courses are many, many Coursera courses from all over the world, international universities. As I said, all of these courses are for free. I'm just reading the chat. Jamal is saying work-life balance. That's an amazing topic. I'm making notes of all of these courses. Ageism in the workplace, change management. Yes, change management. Carry on, Mars. Feel free to turn
Yes.
your mic on and let us know what's your thoughts about these suggestions that you may want us to speak on. What's your thoughts about it and stuff like that. So, of course, your courses. What I've done for you is conflict. I know tonight course is on tonight's session was on managing conflict. And what you would do is you come in here, view all Coursera courses, and you click search. As I said, I searched conflict for you already. And these are the courses that we have: developing interpersonal skills, intercultural communication and conflict resolution, mediation and conflict resolution, negotiation. So many, many courses in a variety of areas. I saw some other opportunities in the chat. I'll just type in change management. Let's see if you have any courses in change management for you. As I said, if when you search it, it will come up here. See? Influencing, storytelling, change management, and governance. Yes, this is a very important course here. So perhaps next month's session can be something like change management or managing change or something like that. And then you can feature this course. So this is an exciting course for you. You click view course, you come on in, and you see all of what the course is all about. And thereafter, you would enroll directly into the course, and it is just as easy as 1, 2, 3. This is a beginner level course. It's 2 months, a bit longer than the other ones, but at 10 hours a week. But you'll be able to go through and you'll be able to get your certificate at the end. So that's our
Wonderful.
NTI platform. We have so many, many offerings that we want for you to take up. As I said, All of these courses are for free. So I'm just making note of all of these topics that you may be interested in. So all of these are here. So we really want for you to go onto the platform, sign up,
Yes.
enroll, start a course today. We are here to help you. So Candy, how did you enjoy tonight's session?
Yes. I loved it. Tonight was awesome. I'm humbled and grateful for the opportunity to share and some really good questions. The time went so fast. You know, you never have enough time, but I'll be back anytime you want me back. Just let me know, whatever the topic may be, and we'll just get better together. We're all about transformation. So let's just put in the work. That's all we got to do. The reward is worth it. Believe me. So thank you
Indeed.
everyone for your comments and just for taking this time out of your evening to be here.
Thank you, Candy. We certainly enjoyed the session. And any more questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. We can hold on for perhaps 2 more minutes. Ruth Rollick is saying, are there free MSCs on Coursera? Unfortunately, not the free ones, but Coursera does have the opportunities there. We try to do those basic level courses. So feel free to check it out, Ruth, as well. Is there any other questions? Feel for Candy, for myself. I'm gonna drop my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any challenges. How should managers manage? So yes, C. Hinkson, that is a very important one. Marion, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed the session. I'm really heartened to see all of this feedback, all of this conversation in the chat, because this is Conversation Corner, and
Yes.
this is especially for you. So remember, Conversation Corner, the final Thursday of every month. Final Thursday of every month. We have Conversation Corner. The second Monday of the month, we do Conversation Corner on Instagram. That's a more relaxed conversation for the younger audience. This one is a more training, a more formal session. And then we also do training. Midweek Mindset is on Wednesday at 3:35 p.m. And also, we have different training sessions, different outreach sessions as well. So I'm not sure if my director, Dr. Leacock, is in a position to talk. I know she was driving. Doc, are you there? Can you just give a final parting comment to everyone? Only if you can. I know you were driving. Okay, I'm not hearing Dr. Leacock at this point in time. Winell, are you still with us? Perhaps you can give the final vote of thanks. Okay, it's not looking like Winell is
Hi,
with us.
good evening,
Oh yes,
everybody.
brilliant.
Oh, I
Candy,
hear her.
I just wanted you to know that you did a fantastic job this evening. The topic was very well presented, and based on the comments in the audience, everybody seemed pretty pleased with your contribution. So I just want to thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this evening's session. And I would like to thank everybody in the audience as well for
Yes, thank you, everybody.
being attending this evening. So I thank you, all of you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone. It
Winell.
was wonderful. We will do this again.
Yes, we will most definitely do again. So, ladies and gentlemen, look out. September 26th, the final Thursday of the
Yes.
month, next Conversation Corner. We want to see all of you there. Bring a friend. Please bring a friend. So I want next month to be 86 people. We had 43 this month, 86 people next month.
Wow.
If all of us bring a friend, then we will have 86 people and we will all be transforming. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the final time tonight, good night and God bless. Candy, thank you so very much once again.
You're so welcome. My pleasure. Good night, everyone.
Good night.